this superior, archaic police force is not doing it for Nigerians, and it's not fighting crime. It's not, supporting or respecting human rights. And as you can see, our society today is obvious. Part of the reason why crime is so prevalent is the failure of the policing system. So it needs total transformation overhaul.
It does. I agree. You'd see, we'll go to the police station, and we say, or the police tries to use the slogan, "The police is your friend," but in reality, the opposite is
the moment you walk into a police building, you know you are in enemy territory.
Yeah, you can never go to the police station and come out without parting with money.
Yeah.
Robert Nesta Marley, a Jamaican singer, musician, and songwriter, once sang, "Get up, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up, don't give up the fight." It was actually a song. So, get up, stand up for your rights. You recall that song? All right, so let's go to our next quote. And this one is from Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. He was an Indian lawyer, anti-colonial nationalist, and political atheist who employed non-violent resistance to lead the successful campaign for India's independence from British rule, and to later inspire movements for civil rights and freedom across the world. He once said, "Silence becomes cowardice when occasion demands speaking out the whole truth and acting accordingly." I agree. Our next one is from Albert Einstein, a German-born theoretical physicist, widely acknowledged to be one of the greatest and most influential physicists of all time. He once said, "If I were to remain silent, I'd be guilty of complicity." That's some strong word. Our next one is from Martin Luther King Jr., American Baptist minister and activist, one of the most prominent leaders in the civil rights movement from 1955 until his assassination in 1968. He once said, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws." All right. Our last one from John F. Kennedy, an American politician who served as the 35th president of the United States from 1961 until his assassination near the end of his third year in office. He once said, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable." Okay, so let's see how all of this could relate to what we will be discussing today. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's Television Studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabel Orji. EndSARS protest began as a call to end police brutality and extrajudicial killings that have become endemic in Nigeria. So, what were the demands of the EndSARS protesters, by the way? Reiterating their demands, the protesters charged the presidency and police hierarchy to not just #EndSARS, but also to end police brutality and then institute police reforms from lower cadre policeman to the highest cadre. They also called for transparent prosecution of all the officers involved in the menace, both past and present, as well as to ensure compensation of victims of police brutality. In their demands, they lamented that despite several reforms announced by then Inspector General of Police, that's Mohammed Adamu, cases of abuse of citizens by SARS have increased without any steps taken by the police hierarchy to address the fundamental problem of the impunity of the operatives. They further stated that SARS operatives promote extortion of self-enrichment and lawlessness, of which their non-adherence to the prescription of the law poses greater consequences for the citizens. They also demanded for justice for all victims who have suffered injustice in the past and a public inquiry on the activities of the unit in the past. In the long term, they also suggested that the police hierarchy apply digital medium for tracking such cases by the police. Now, to get concessions from the government, some of the demands made by the disbandment of SARS have been fulfilled, but some others have not been fully met, like the prosecution of killer cops, the release of all protesters in detention, and the total overhaul of the police force. The government further resolved to set a judicial panel of inquiry as a follow-up to dissolving SARS, just as each state government is to set up a victim support fund, which the federal government will support. This they have done, and while some states were able to pay claims to victims, others have not. So, recently, Nigeria's marked 2 years anniversary of the #EndSARS movement at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos. Our correspondents report that the police fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse protesters gathered at the venue, as protesters were seen running helter-skelter for safety. Aside all of this, there are still loads of questions waiting for sincere answers. On that backdrop, my guest on the show today is Omoyele Sowore, presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, and we also have Kola, Alapinni, international human rights lawyer, and this is what we will be discussing on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, the conversation just begun. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now, let's go straight to our conversation for today. Our guest on the show today, first, we have Omoyele Sowore. He is the presidential candidate for African Action Congress, AAC. It's good to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you for bringing me.
Awesome. And then we also have Kola Alapinni. He is an international human rights lawyer. It's good to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Now let's get down to business. We'll start with you, Omoyele Sowore. And SARS, 2 years after, what gives? Because are we still at that stage where we keep burning candles, the procession commemorating the anniversary every 2 years? How far so far?
Well, I don't think we have passed the stage of protest yet, because the issues that led to the massive revolutionary action by Nigerians have not been resolved. They've not resolved completely dismantling the SARS. I still saw them. They've just disguised them as various units. And also, they have not come to terms with that sober destination that they kill people. A lot of people were murdered and massacred by the police, the army, and other security agencies across the country. They also haven't addressed the issue of police welfare, which was one of the cardinal requests or demands of the EndSARS movement. So remembering EndSARS is just reminding them the issues have not been resolved, but EndSARS will be around forever because it was a major landmark watershed event of resistance in Nigeria. So it's not going anywhere for the rest of time.
I hear you say massacre. We'll get back to that. Now, I know that you were in Lagos lending your voice towards during the 2 years memorial. Yeah. So now walk us through your experiences, what that meant to you, because now a lot of people have actually argued that it's just one of those campaign strategies. Let's hear directly from you in that regard.
Well, when people are entitled to say what they want. My life is in the public domain regarding being a prominent member of the protest movement in the country. Someone who participated in driving the military out of power cannot be said to be doing campaign strategy with EndSARS. But, it opened my eyes. First, it was my first time in Lagos since EndSARS started. Although I was part of it, I operated mostly from Abuja because I was restricted to Abuja by the government when EndSARS hit. And I participated, and I haven't been to Lagos since the end of EndSARS. So I used that opportunity to appear there. But sadly, we were still rough-handled by the police. I was tear gas, I was choked during the EndSARS memorial, even though it was largely peaceful. The police still did what they had to do, which was abuse, and insult our intelligence by tear gassing, and handling a number of persons in a very rough and very terrible manner. They also arrested some 4 persons, but we got them released that same day. But what other thing it did was that some videos that had never been seen before regarding direct killings were made available. I think I posted 2 of them on my handle. And it showed one police officer in Mufti shooting an NSAS protester, at close range with a pistol. And there were several other things that were revealed during that period. And I had a face-to-face meeting with those who were injured during NSAS. So it was a very sobering event. But, I hear this all the time, people saying that anything you do is political in nature. But you should ask yourself, the killing of those young persons were political decisions too by the government.
So now someone actually stated on social media saying that after all, that he has not seen this government would have decided to bank on the fact that people were killed at the time, and then they would have just come and say they wanted to go for condolence visits, so they need to some amount of money to go for condolence visit. Then you have human rights lawyers here and there deciding to sue and not, but he has not seen anything like that. So for that, he believes that there was nothing like a massacre at the moment. Now I'm going to read out what according to the Oxford Dictionary of what massacre says. It says it means the killing of a large number of people, especially in a cruel way, the bloody massacre, in a cruel way rather. So now let's leave it at that. So do you actually, some people have argued that, is it a massacre or is it not a massacre? So for you, is it?
The way to actually, situate this is to look at the character of the Nigerian government, especially under the Buhari regime. Did they visit people that were killed in the shites that were massacred in Zaria? That one, we have graves, mass graves. We have the families. We have numbers to it. Over 1,000 persons were massacred in one night. The leader of shites is still nursing injury. His wife, several injuries. Did the government admit to that? No. So why would it be different that they are also in denial over what they did at SARS on October the 20th, 2020? It's the character of governments all over the world to hide atrocities like that. But it's particularly in Nigeria. What about the families of those who are injured, who are not? The Lagos NSAS panel said it openly. They revealed to the public that people were killed in large numbers, according to the definition of that you read out. But if you look further, the definition also includes that those who are victims of those kind of attacks are also helpless. You understand? So the fact that the government is hiding it does not mean that a massacre was not carried out.
The government is which government? The state government or the federal government?
Both the federal and the state. It was federal soldiers that were sent to kill people at NSAS. The governor of Lagos State did come out initially at the beginning that a lot of people were killed. So massacre of protesters who were not, in any way violent, whether it happened in one spot or in several parts of the city, it's still massacre. They admitted that a lot of people died in the Kogi prison. No, not died, but were killed. All this has happened one single day. That's October the 20th, 2020. So we can't be walking around with dictionaries when people are hurting. And when you have evidence that people were killed, and official arms or institutions of government admitted to it, the people who carried out the killings have not denied it. We know them. They were given promotion in the army. We know where they came from. There was a barrack in Lagos, in Bonny Camp, where they drove from. We have evidence of it. We have footage of the army driving. We have footage of the army shooting at people at close range. We even obtained another footage recently that showed a guy who was shot at close range and many people lying on the floor, bloody. So I don't know why we're still looking for a dictionary meaning of massacre when we already have the evidence in front of us, physical evidence.
Let's come to you, Kola Alapinni. Now, they've always, over time, there've been that lingering question as to whether it's a massacre or not. So I'm sure that there are a legal meaning or interpretation to all of this. What are your thoughts, or what do you say to it?
Killings are what they are. killings, whether systematic or sporadic or wherever. I think we're just paying lip service to, did a massacre really occur or didn't it occur? What we know that there were killings and they were unlawful. People who were in authority, who had access to weapons and arms, opened fire on their citizens. I mean, that's abominable, and shameful. The whole world, came down heavily on the Nigerian government and criticized it. The fact that the government tries so hard to suppress what went on shows that something's not right. And we've seen this experience in history. It happened under Augusto Pinochet in Chile, when Chile was under a military regime and people were being forced to disappear systematically. It happened in China, 1989 Tiananmen Square, where the Chinese government suppressed, students' riots and rolled out the military tanks. It is in the behavior of governments to want to cover up these acts, but it always seeps out. So I think what we should be talking more is accountability and not whether the massacre occurred or not. Post these protests, well, what have we done? Did we get justice, or what we just got was judgment, or are we just assuaging the wounds of a few people who were able to come out and prove their case before the various panels? Because you also have to realize that some people were cowed into silence and they would never come out under this administration. As a matter of fact, some people are still being held in prisons from what we hear as a result of the protests. And these are the unknowns. In international criminal law and the corpus of laws, you have various terms for these people. They could call them the disappeared, where the government effectively just removes you from circulation. And if you're not someone like my very good friend who is well known, and they keep you away and everybody keeps agitating for the release of Sowore, there are quite a number of people who just get missing and get lost in the system. Yeah, for instance, those days when, I don't know if you're familiar with the term Ruga, and the police would just, pack people at the bus stops, and some people just disappear for 3 years.
Some never seen again.
Never seen again.
And there was also that Yata who was disappeared.
We don't know
about the same night I was arrested.
So you have what they call the disappeared in international criminal law, and then you what we've seen now is that there's some people, allegations or rumors, and this keeps seeping out, that there's still some people from the protests. They're not dead, okay?
Still in detention.
We don't know where they are. They're in the custody of the state somewhere. Some of them probably don't have files. It's just take you into custody and that's it. And you're disappeared for years until maybe someday, if the chief judge or the visitation panel goes to the prisons and they're finding out, a few people might just get out.
We'll definitely get back to that part if there's even any hope for them to get found again. But then you said that we should be looking at if it is justice or judgment. For you, what is it?
It's neither, because we refuse to confirm that an atrocity took place, or we're in denial. That's the worst part of it. Let me give you an example. If a couple are having an issue, and it seems as if they're going to break, and everybody's going to go their separate ways, the first thing, or the first way out for those couples is to first realize there's a problem. It's okay, we have an issue here. Okay, then you decide if the issue is big to keep you apart, or we can walk through this issue. But what we're having here is we're refusing to acknowledge that we have deep-rooted institutional issues with the police force. We're just trying, and I said it once in your program then, that this is not reforms, this is relabeling. When they say, oh, we cancelled SARS, we did this, what we just did was to just disguise or ship them out in the various formations. We've not carried out any institutional reform. The police force is still the police force. What people complained of, and I'm glad that Yele spoke about the reforms when he was in his intro, that These were some of the issues that NSAS were about. It was about reforming the police. It was about even the welfare of the police. Because we get the kind of police force that we deserve. Because we're not even, making the men. When I talk about the police, forget about the officers. The officers would always sort out themselves. It's an elitist thing, both in the armed forces and the police or whatever. Officers would always, but the men, the ones who, the boots on the ground, these people are poorly treated by their country. Nigeria is an abusive relationship with his police and the forces. The policemen are wearing tattered uniforms, bad shoes, and their berets are faded. Have you seen go to the US embassy and see, and see some of the US Marines and how they turn out, and you can see that we have made the Nigerian policeman disgruntled with himself in the first place. It feels dehumanized, and we're expecting world-class service from him. It's not possible.
Even though a lot of people say that this harassment and unfair treatment by the police, they're prevalent, and it didn't start today. It
starts right from their training. It starts. I traced the history of the Nigerian police for you once. I said the Nigerian police was set up as a colonial force. Yeah. It wasn't set up for us. The Nigerian police force was not set up to protect Nigerians.
Just as a matter of fact, when the police force, I also went through the history of the police force. It was first set up in the 1800s, towards the end of the 1800s, as what they call Hausa Constabulary.
Yes, it was a constabulary force.
Yes. And then it became, when Nigeria was set up as a business, it became a protective force for the business. At the point, it was called the Queen's Constabulary. Yeah. It was a police for the Royal Niger Company. So it was never set up for the Nigerian people. That's why the word force was prevalent as part of, so use force to make people fall in line with
the colonialists.
The colonialists and the people who replaced them. That's why you see that more of policing today is still about VIP protection as opposed to civil policing.
Because that's the origin.
That's the origin. They were set up from day one to protect the interests of some people.
So there you go. We don't have a police force for us. Yeah. It wasn't set up to protect the people in the space now known as Nigeria. So we need to go back to training, to the curriculum, welfare. There has to be deep-rooted reforms if you want your policeman to be civil to you on the road. I gave an example once before. It's very rare for you to see a British policeman carrying weapons. The only British police force or the Metropolitan Police that you see carrying weapons are anti-terror police. Probably you see them in some, strategic places at the airport in Heathrow or wherever, or some train stations, international train stations, where you have the Eurostar coming in, maybe at King's Cross or wherever. It's not normal for you to see a British policeman carrying a weapon around, but how dare you? the British policeman stops you and they don't stop, or the way he carries himself, he's probably just going to hold a baton or something, and if you're doing something illegal, you'll be trembling. Okay, so it's got nothing to do with our policemen carrying AK-47s around and harassing everybody.
That's even an anomaly to be carrying weapons of war in civil environments. Yes. Yeah, then most of the weapons that they need to carry could be concealed in their body. Like he said, the authority of a police officer is rooted in law and not brutality or will, So here, people want to prove to you it's more about the ego of the person. And as you mentioned, this is very important to note that if you want to create a brutal force, you must first brutalize the people who will be doing the work. So their training, their condition. You go to the barrack, people live in these police barracks are dehumanized, as the first step. They are poorly paid. You give someone an AK-47, and 50,000 naira salary. You have just hired an armed robber. That's what it is.
Or a hired killer.
Yes, or a hired killer, a murderer. Because at the slightest provocation, they will unleash so that they can keep their own survival as well. So it's become a survival of the fittest as opposed to a protective force. And beyond just reformation, I think it needs a complete transformation, including change of name, orientation and attitude towards who are you protecting, who are you here for, and you must define what is maximum and minimum force, and relationship, community policing. And I also support the idea of state police. I support it up to the point of campus policing.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that we can break it down because it's it's part of how you civilize the police. This superior, archaic police force is not doing it for Nigerians anyway. It's not fighting crime. It's not, supporting or respecting human rights. And as you can see, our society today is obvious. Part of the reason why crime is so prevalent is the failure of the policing system. So it needs total transformation overhaul.
It does. I agree. You'd see, we'll go to the police station, and we say, or the police tries to use the slogan, "The police is your friend," but in reality, the opposite is
The
what
moment you
happens.
walk into a police building, you know you are in enemy territory.
Yeah, you can never go to the police station and come out without parting with money.
Yeah.
I mean, if a kid gets lost, say abroad or something, you're trained from school to just apart from now that you now have mobile phones and everything around, you probably will just go to the phone booth and dial emergency, or you see a police vehicle passing, you wave them down and say, "Oh, I'm lost." So you're trained to engage them and to see them as your savior. But you go to the police station here, you have to pay for the biro. They don't have
paper,
paper.
yeah.
They don't have.
You have to pay the writer to the IPO, the crime officer, and the DPO.
Yeah, there you go.
So did you actually missed out on that opportunity to reform the police, especially with regards to the NSAS protest? Because some of the demands made by the protesters then was justice for all victims who have suffered injustice in the past, and a public inquiry on the activities of the unit in the past. So now, in the long term, would you actually say that we missed out on that opportunity to reform the police force?
We missed out on a lot of opportunities to reform everything in Nigeria. It's the reason why some of us, regardless of how scared people are, we call for a revolution, because reforms are not adequate to address the injustices, the institutional decay, and the foundational problems of Nigeria. You can't, part of the problem people created was running back to the same people who created the problem to solve the problem. So you ask the IG of police to reform the police. It's not possible because it's part of the... Before you can become an IG, you must have blood on your hands. You must have killed, you must have robbed, you must have extorted. There's no crime, heavy duty crime you wouldn't have been involved in before you become an IG of police. So how do you then turn around and say, "Oh, let me reform these guys"? They are the guys who know you very well, that you're a thief and that you are a violator of human rights, who are going to listen to you. No. As we speak now, policemen are also turning on themselves. They have to deduct money from salaries of their workers to host the IG, his wife, any of these mundane things they are doing. They themselves have to be extorted. So, in an attempt to recover from being extorted themselves, they also have to go back to the public and extort and, unfairly, unjustly and unlawfully tax the public. So you can't reform this by the people who created the problem.
So what's the way forward here then? Or we just keep majoring on the major and minor on the minor?
I don't. My own position is very extreme to a lot of people. It would need revolution or revolutionary leadership. So whichever one you get to first. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess when Yeli talks about revolution, it's not talking about a coup or overthrow of government or something. I think we have to look at the theoretical underpinnings of revolutionary movements, and it simply means restructuring. Okay, doing something different. It has to be deep rooted. Deep cleansing of the rots of the urgent stables which we found ourselves, and we missed out, and because these were some of even part of the agitations of the people who were demonstrating that the police itself, there should be the welfare should be should be taken care of before it all snowballed into what became the killings. So we need to be deep rooted about this and be serious. It has to be done independently. I don't think the police is capable of reforming itself. It's obvious.
He's one of my lawyers, so he's thinking about how many hours he will spend at night again drafting, new defenses for things I'm saying. But fundamentally, we are saying the same thing. These things we have to uproot a lot of things, and turn a lot of things upside down for this country to achieve that position. Look at all the countries that Nigeria started with, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Brazil. Every day you fly to Nigeria, you likely fly on a Brazilian Embraer jet. They produce some of the best mid-range jets, and they are going to the long-range jets. Very soon they'll probably make, Boeing and the French Airbus. They'll make them. They'll compete better with them, because you can even feel it when you're flying a Brazilian jet. They're more stable. They withstand turbulence better, they land better. These are the people we started with. But the best that Nigeria has ever produced, according to the people, the jokers in power, is kilishi. That's that meat, the dried meat. So a lot of work would have to be done, a lot of sacrifices will have to be done. And also, a system that sustains, mediocrity has to be dismantled, because anytime I see, people like him and several other people who are capable of doing things a simple way, I get angry and upset that the people who don't know how to do anything at all are the people in charge of the affairs of the country. So, see, my lawyer here has Sokoto to the Minister of Justice of Nigeria, who we all know is incapable, But imagine if he's the Minister of Justice. Imagine if Femi Falana in the affairs of justice in this country, in any capacity at all. You would see the difference. In the US, some of the most brilliant lawyers are the ones who write judgment for judges. In fact, when you are leaving the university, they take the first class materials from the university and assign them to judges, because they want to keep the vibrancy of their justice system in place and ensure that nobody is cheated. So many young lawyers work with the government as district attorneys, and then they become judges. And, they keep the tradition of excellence going. But here, we keep the tradition of mediocrity going and well sharpened, and there's no way a country can progress in that light.
Let's go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Omoyele Sowore and Kola Alapinni. I will see you shortly. Please stay.
If these people in government do not feel the brunt that the ordinary person feels on the street, we're not going anywhere. We can be granting all the interviews forever.
Yes.
The day you disconnect Aso Rock from NEPA, you make sure from generator, and you make sure it's only NEPA that comes there, and it's not being given priority. There's some special lines or some special areas, NEPA will always have light. If you fix Aso Rock on just normal line that goes to Karu, so that whenever there's no light in Karu, the whoever is inside Aso Rock does not have light, we'll have light within 1 year.
And to also pay our lawmakers minimum wage, 30,000 naira per month.
There you go. We'll have more.
Thank you so much.
Different Nigeria that day.
If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from Captain's Television Studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you missed out on a whole lot, but then you can still join in the conversation. Our guest on the show today is Omoyele Sowore. He is the presidential candidate of AAC, and we also have international human rights lawyer Kola Alapinni. Now, before we went on that break, you've actually stated quite a lot of things, but now let's come to you, Kola Alapinni, with regards to the judicial inquiry or panel of inquiry that was set up in various states. Would you actually say that there's anything to go by? Did they bring forth anything tangible at all? Because we still have some states who are yet to even produce the white paper, and we still have some states who are yet to even bring anything at all. So was it anything at all?
Yeah, it depends on the side of the divide which you're sitting. One thing that was constant from the various panels that sat was that government had something to hide. Okay, it's undeniable. It's right there staring us in the face. It now depends on the degree of independence to which each panel had to go deep. Some victims got some compensation. I think it's totally it was not adequate. The compensation was just something to assuage them. How do you quantify and compensate someone who's been shot and by the police and his leg has been amputated? 5 million for a lost limb, 10 million. How do you compensate for life if someone has been killed? What's your benchmark? Okay, can we call it adequate compensation and justice if the compensation was awarded even when the police are still denying and don't honor? I'm sorry goes a long way. And if the police comes to the panel and they're still denying and trying to cover it up, and the panel now says, oh, we find that this thing actually happened, we're giving you 10 million. That, to me, that 10 million is tasteless, because you've refused to acknowledge and own the issue and properly say sorry. It's compensation without apology means nothing to me. I don't know if Yele has something to say on that.
No, I mean, not only is compensation inadequate, because this was not done by way of evaluation. One of the ways that justice is delivered is to first evaluate loss, so as to see if they're comparable with compensation that's given out. But what is most difficult for a lot of victims is to still find the police officers who carried out these atrocities in uniform.
Yeah, not been punished.
Some of them have also been promoted. It's just like I was saying, the guy who led the killings at NSAS, during the NSAS at the toll gate, is become a colonel in the army. We tracked him and found out he was promoted and made it news public. Nobody did anything about it. How can somebody whose leg has been amputated, or a family who has lost a loved one at Lekki Toll Gate, feel happy forever to know that the people who carried out these atrocities are still very much active in the military, and they have even been granted promotion? It was just like you saw the outrage recently when just the spokesperson of the army who said NSAS was Photoshop, when he was appointed as a member of the campaign committee of the Labour Party, the outrage was immediate. It shows to you how deep-rooted
people are aggrieved.
Yes, aggrieved about this issue.
Another part which we've been narrowly missing is that it came to public knowledge that we've been hearing that government sponsors, demonstrate. If there's a demonstration, you have a
counter demonstration.
Yeah, which government sponsor. But we actually saw this come to life properly during the NSAS protest, especially in Abuja. What happened to the person who dispatched those SUVs and carrying thugs who were trying to break up peaceful protesters? Nobody has said anything. Even when a former official of the SSS has identified that this person who owned these vehicles and all that is a member or a former member of the National Assembly or something, we just allowed it to quieten out. What happened to all those protesters who were demonstrating? How come it's only people who were demonstrating against SARS that were arrested, and nobody who
were in the
on the
counter
other side
demonstrations
were arrested? And these are some of the injustice that we're talking about, where we're just paying lip service. I think, frankly, the government of Nigeria would just wish nobody talks about NSAS and it just goes away.
If they could make it illegal,
yeah, because if we could
use that term,
if we can,
of course, not only did they do that, that's actually enforced, to be honest. nobody is talking too much about the buying of Twitter in all of this.
Yeah,
The
we
government
went to court over there.
internationalized its notoriety by banning Twitter. And the only reason they banned Twitter was SARS. That
Because of
Twitter was the
support.
one who made it popular and sustained it and kept it in the memory of the public. So they've already done that.
So the deleted tweet was just an
Yes,
excuse.
yes.
They said it was suspended at the time.
Yeah,
That's
but
what-
Twitter is back now.
No, yeah,
But I'm saying
we went
look at
to
the
court.
number
We
of
got
months that
judgment
they were kept
we
out
got
of-
judgment
although
against the government.
it was waste of time on their part because citizens had figured out how to bypass
Yeah, with VPN.
the
Alright.
ban with VPN.
Now, so I know that you actually went to show your solidarity to the Protestants, and then some have said, including one of the candidates, that I'm sure he's still showing up because he's not yet a president. If or when he becomes the president, that's when you begin to see his bodyguards will increase, and then you have his gates will have beware of dogs, and then you have signs on his gates, and then he'll just feel disaffected. And with this kind of issues, when it happens, how do you react to that?
Like I told you before, I don't react to mundane allegations of what I will become that I'm not now. After 30 solid years, now 32, by 2023, I would have been actively involved in activism for 33 years. The first time I had national appearance with a presidential candidate who was denied of his money, Abiola, was 1993. By next year, it will be 30 years. So if I've consistently supported justice, put my life on the line, expelled from the university, spent time in jail, why would anybody, be so flagrant to just say, well, when he becomes president, he's going to have bodyguards? If I have bodyguards, it will be because I'm president. It won't be because I love bodyguards. I used to walk around this Abuja all by myself, but when I go to court, he can testify to it. Government will hire thugs come attack me in court. I was abducted in front of a judge in this country. We were all in court on that day by the DSL. State, non-state actors go after me now, but I keep my head above waters. When I was restricted to Abuja, I could have done what other people would do, which is just disappear. I could get someone officially to help me disappear from Nigeria, and I would have been gone for 3 or 4 years, speaking from the US. But I refuse to leave because this is my country. I don't even have a US passport, which is what some of these people you are referring to. At the slightest opportunity, they will abandon the Nigerian passport, they take an oath of allegiance for another country, and the same thing applies to their children. I don't have a US. I never applied for citizenship in the US. I'm not blaming those who do, but I'm just telling you that that's how consistent my character has been when it comes to developmental issues about my country.
Your president has just jetted off to the UK.
Exactly.
He
We're
doesn't
hearing
want to
just of terrorist, threats to the city. The president of Nigeria has left already. I didn't leave.
because he doesn't want to be treated by hospitals.
Yes, I could have relocated to Lagos too, so as to keep safe. But we're here together with you in Abuja, hoping for the best and putting our lives on the line on a daily basis. So I don't like to react to such things simply because one of the things I stand for in my life is this fundamental rights of people to freely express themselves, either for me or against. That's the kind of society I want. But these things don't define my character. My character actually is known publicly. I've spent more time giving my best, to make the country the best in the world than this, very fake allegations.
So now we see that you support, see the kind of support that you get, especially from the youth, even with regards to the NSAS movement. But when you, if you and your party get into power, or voted into power, what will you do? Not only to end SARS, but also to end bad government, to end fuel subsidy, to end Naira depreciation, to end unemployment that has massively shortchanged the youth from becoming who and what they dream to be, and also to end that's brought forth this youth restiveness. What will you do to end the Japa syndrome? What will you do to end medical tourism, end insecurity, oil theft, and also on ending strikes and even end corruption? The list is quite
endless. Well, I am probably the first candidate in this election cycle to produce and make public my own manifesto. And these manifestos had been produced since 2019 anyways. But as Nigeria evolved in vastly, that is not making progress, they became more and more relevant. And as a result, we made them public again and added even more to it. So, and I've demonstrated that I'm against closure of university. I participated in 2 demonstrations against ASU strike, one in Abuja, the other one. I demonstrated against police brutality in Abuja. I was the first to start the NSAS protest in Abuja. We went with our protesters to the office of the Inspector General of Police. In fact, the Inspector General of Police almost overran us when he was arriving office with his vehicles. So I have worked as an individual, as a lone wolf, to fight corruption in this country in the course of publishing Sahara reporters. There's nobody who can deny it. That as an individual, I've demonstrated the character and characteristics of someone who is willing, and I mean, not only willing, but equipped to fight these issues that you have raised. And I've also made public my manifestos and plan of action to make Nigeria a better place. I, for instance, in 2019 and now have shown how we can provide employment for not less than 5 million young people through the heavy investment in power. Like if you fix the power sector from the miserable 5,000 megawatts, 4,000 to 24,000, which I demonstrated with my deep understanding and study of how Morocco, Tunisia, and so that you don't say that we are bringing America into the picture, overcame in 4 years their own misery in the power sector, and how Egypt in particular was able to hook to the national grid, whatever grid they had, over 40 million homes, and how that elevated their GDP overnight, such that they are doing way better than Nigeria now. I've spoken about this. I even laid down the bit by bit. If you read our programs online, it's available online, Sowore2023.org. It explains it. It explains how workers can be paid the minimum wage of 100,000. And how when you invest in your country and you engage in production, by the way, you cannot produce anything if you don't solve the energy problem. There is no country in the world that has ever had an industrial revolution without a revolution in the energy sector. Anybody telling you otherwise is just lying to you. That's number one. In fact, security would be reduced by 50% if electricity were to take center stage in Nigeria. Because some of the petty crimes that we are complaining about are done in darkness. And street lights can solve some of those problems at night or even during the daytime. And a lot of the youth that we are complaining are taking drugs, are engaging in crime, are people who have nothing else to do with their lives. So it becomes the survival of the fittest. What do you want somebody to do if they don't have the means of finding food? They'll go and look for a way to do it. And where they can't find it, and they can't find a job, they can't find food, and they can't find a life, they start taking drugs so as to dull, the pain of this social disorder that our country has become. So with ASU strike, it's investment in education. Where, I was part of the student leaders who also fought for investment in education. I was part of people who was fighting for what we call academic reform, ACAREF, as far back as the 90s. I was one of the young people who fought for a sovereign national conference. We actually tried to gather in Lagos in 1992 with Akabashoro, who was the president of the Nigeria Bar Association at that time. And they came and tear-gassed us. The society were mocking us. Had we succeeded in having a sovereign national conference, the same way Benin Republic had in 1992, this restructuring that everybody is crying for now would have been embedded in, and a constitution would have emerged from it, including some of the foundational problems, because they were brilliant people, courageous people that were calling for this in 1992. Those problems were not solved. They have now every little problem in 1990, 1991, 1992 up to 1993 have now become amplified. The roads that was just a small crater at that time has now become a valley. You understand? The academic issues that were supposed to be cured with 3 billion, the first ASU strike was as a result of a request for 3 billion investment. It has now become 1.3 trillion. And but we had the 3 billion at that time because we had just gotten money from the oil windfall as a result of the Gulf War.
$12.2 million.
Yes, but one person stole 12 point something billion, and we refused to invest 3 billion. We are saying the same thing now. The Accountant General could walk away with $150 billion, but you have no 200 billion to give to ASU. ASU is asking for 1.3 trillion for it to be disbursed 6 different tranches and times. So to get them back to class, we just need 200 billion to start. But now you go and get judges to return them to class. Maybe the judges will also provide them food. We'll see. Or you want to send judges to go and be teaching students. I don't know. So we get our priorities wrong because we keep voting for people who have no idea about how to solve Nigeria's problem. And we hate people who talk ideas. That's the truth. And that's why we're here.
All right. So now, for your manifesto, to that woman or man who is in the village, in the rural area, they cannot read your manifesto.
They can.
So most of them, some of them. Okay, for those people who cannot read or
People
who are not ready to read,
at least can have it interpreted to them.
Okay, so
we just
now,
came from Kano. I don't want us to be making this assumption. People always make the assumption that Nigerians who cannot read don't know what is going on. In fact, it happens that they are the ones who are more interested in development. I'm telling you, the people we met in Kano who have PVC, they are not the professors. We didn't meet too many big people or too many middle-class people. Let me tell you a secret, and I'll end there so you can continue asking your question. When they wanted to do collection of PVC this year, to ask for the promotion, go and collect your PVC, go and register, they needed Davido, Wizkid. I'm exaggerating, not exact, but big musicians in Nigeria, media influencers. Did you hear of a concert in Kano? They don't need your concert to collect PVC. They are too politically conscious.
On the radio.
But all of them listen to radio. They just listen to simple, journalists like
messages.
You. Say, please go and take your PVC. This is the day it starts. That's all they need, the information. Every goddamn person we met in Kano has got the PVC. But you'll be surprised that some of the celebrities who are asking you to get PVC themselves did not go and register because they don't have the time.
Because you said simple. Now we are looking for that. A lot of Nigerians, most Nigerians that you ask, they'll tell you that those candidates who have put themselves forth, that they're not seeing one tangible thing that we can hold on to. So for that woman who is not ready or who is too busy to read the manifesto, what is that one thing, very simple, that I am coming out with?
Yeah, you are coming out with saying, hey, madam, there's somebody who can give you free healthcare. I was a little child when I heard about free education. I had not even gone to school. I knew about Awolowo when I was 6 years old because people were just saying, Awolowo will bring you free education, he'll bring you free healthcare, he'll bring you free this, he will provide water. And they actually did it, We still have now in the village next to ours, that in the water tank, day relay. Today, nobody has produced anything as large as that in the last 40 years, and it has the capability not only to keep to give you clean water. It's a reservoir. If it finishes, it will be loaded before you wake up in the morning. There was pure potable water all the way. So it's all those small text and language that you tell them and they will understand. Because do you know why they understand easier and better? Because they are the ones who are the receiving end of bad governance. They are the ones who are poor. They are the ones who don't have electricity. They are the ones who are very eager to send their children to school so that when they grow old, the children can serve as social security for them. So it's easier to even explain to those people. But you know what the mainstream politicians came and did? They also came and confused them. How on earth would somebody tell you about stomach infrastructure in Ekiti State that has the highest number of professors? And people believe them. They believe Fayoshe when he was talking about. And what was he doing? He would go to a barbing salon or a street place and they would buy Bolly, roasted plantain. They would buy it from, they would share, and they say, that's stomach infrastructure. And people believed it. That you can grow your roads inside your stomach, or you can grow, you can build your schools inside your stomach. And when the guy was done, he left them in penury. The man who followed did the same thing to them. So it is very fundamental that we keep talking to our people. I think what has worked the most, in my view, in the history of politics in Nigeria is word of mouth. But now we are even lucky to have technology as part of our communication system.
All right.
My grandmother died about maybe 5 months ago, and a week before she died, she insisted talking to me, and we put her on FaceTime, and we spoke. Are you going to say that she doesn't know about cell phones? She does.
All right. All right. Our time is fast spent, but before we let you go on that, I know that you are a human rights activist aside your presidential ambition. So if and when you become the president, will you actually give, a lot of people want to know this part, if you would give people the right to come out and peacefully protest? Because we've seen how much most activists would chant solidarity songs, and immediately they get into government or smell the Aso Villa, their tone changes, and you just begin to wonder what exactly do they share in that government house that makes them to change their tone or tone cold all of a sudden from blowing hot. So what is it for you?
I'll put it there 2 ways. First is that you'll be surprised as president of Nigeria that I will participate in protests myself. I could lead some. If, for instance, I mean it, if, for instance, we have a program and the National Assembly is stalling, I'll carry people to go and protest there if they don't want to listen to me. The second aspect of it is part of the reason I hate labels, comrade and all this. A lot of people who are doing human rights activism is a label that's more important to them than the work. I have done the work and I don't like the label. That's, you rarely hear people call me comrade. I don't like it. It's not as if it's a bad word, but I know what the connotation is that these are the hungry wolves who use human rights and labor leadership, participate in every conference, just so that you can recognize it. There are even people who have made this, as young students in particular, they will print cards, business cards, and put comrade there. They will put title, protester, human rights, and that's the moment you are not in that realm. You allow your activities to define you, and history to take care of what you represent. You are different. If I wanted to be in government, I think I would have been in government as far back as 1993, when people were selling out left, right, and center. I've told this story before. I met Abiola, he gave me 800,000 naira. I refused it when he was sitting in his living room is larger than this. He probably been there before. They still even use it for conferences today. So all these big politicians sitting there clutching to their bags of money. When I didn't accept it, he said, I'm the first young person. I was wearing flip-flops into that meeting that ever rejected money. 800,000 naira in 1993 is probably almost equivalent to $500,000 of today. And he was shocked. And when I was leaving, he stood up and escorted me out. It's the reason you saw that video, that small clip of me standing behind him. It was because I rejected money, and he was shocked and surprised and loved it. If he was around now, who knows what he'll be doing with himself.
All right, Kola, before we close on this conversation, they're actually calling on me to let you go very quickly. According to the Amnesty International, it was revealed that no fewer than 40 protesters during the NSAS unrest are still languishing in jail, unaccounted for. Now, is there any ray of hope, any faith or hope that these people might actually get tried or something?
We highlighted this earlier. If people have this information, they should come forward, and we'll be able to assist in securing their liberty. And in a nutshell, if I may say, the issue which we have in Nigeria right now, 2023 is going to be a make or mar year if we don't put structures in place and ensure. Where's our president? Our president has jetted off to the United Kingdom again to go and treat himself. Here he was a protester. He got into power. He shut down on protesters. He campaigned and said he would not allow medical tourism. He was the first person that jetted out. If we budget billions for the Aso Rock Clinic, his wife confessed that they didn't even have Panadol over there. If we don't make some sort of law or executive order that stops people in government from, if you're serving in government, you must not seek treatment abroad. Your children cannot school abroad. If we don't disconnect our government lodges, starting from the presidential villa, ministers' residencies, governor's lodge, if we do not disconnect them from generators, we will never have light in Nigeria.
Oh.
Our hospitals will never function.
All
Our
right.
schools, the reason why ASU was on strike for that long is because their children going to go to school in Nigeria. If these people in government do not feel the brunt that the ordinary person feels on the street, we're not going anywhere. We can be granting all the interviews forever.
Yes.
The day you disconnect ASU Rock from NEPA, you make
Generator.
sure from generator, and you make sure it's only NEPA that comes there, and it's not being given priority. You know, there's some special lines or some special areas, NEPA will always have light. If you fix ASU Rock on just normal line that goes to Karu, so that whenever there's no light in Karu, the whoever is inside ASU Rock does not have light, we'll have light within 1 year.
And
Thank
to
you so
also
much.
pay our lawmakers minimum wage, 30,000 naira per month.
There you
Interesting.
go. We'll have more
Thank you
You
inflation.
see
so
a different
much.
Nigeria than there.
Thank you so much, Omoyele Sowore, presidential
you.
candidate AAC. It's been a wonderful time having this discussion with you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Kola, Alapinni, international human rights lawyer. It's always a pleasure having this chat with you.
Same. Thank you so much.
All right, viewers, that's where we end the show for today. We have been chatting with Omoyele Sowore. He is the presidential candidate of AAC, and also we had Kola Alapinni, international human rights lawyer. It's been a wonderful time here on the show. I'm sure you must have been rightly educated, entertained, and informed. Till I come your way again, from the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabel Orji. God bless Nigeria.